Welcome to another episode of Dang, it's Math Time with Mrs. Mauro. Today's episode is on graphing vertex form. Our target is to identify the vertex and then be able to graph using vertex form. Let's start with a warm-up. As you recall, x squared, if we were to graph this function, it would look like a parabola facing upwards, and the vertex would be at the origin 0, 0. Here in Desmos is x squared. Here I've added another function that's exactly the same. Right now it's x squared. But if I add plus 2 here, notice it shifted the function up 2 units. So that's what's going to happen here. This plus 2 is going to shift your parabola 2 units up. Now I have this over here as a way to check your answers algebraically, and I would actually start here, but I wanted to show you the visual first. Algebraically, a is equal to 1. There is no b value, and c is equal to 2. Well, if we were to use this x equals negative b over 2a, we're going to end up with a 0 over 2 times a 1, and there's a negative here. This is all going to zero out. So that means that when if we're to find the vertex, the x value is 0. Well, what do we do with this information? We plug it back into our equation. 0 squared is 0. Add the 2. That means that our y is going to be a 2. This is our vertex right here, 0, 2, which we already knew from right here. All right, so number 2, let's try using this first instead of graphing it. So we have a, which is equal to an invisible 1 there. B is equal to a negative 5, and we don't care about c right now. So x is equal to negative 5 for b over 2 times a, which is a 1. There's 2 negatives, so those are going to cancel out, which means x is going to equal 5 over 2, or 2.5, or 2.5. All right, so now we have to use this information. We're going to plug it into our equation here. So y is equal to x squared. X is now 2.5. Square that, minus 5 times that 2.5. So according to our calculations here, our vertex is at 2.5, negative 6.25. Let's find out if we did well. All right, so x squared minus 5x. I just left the parent function there, and you can see the transformation here. Hey, how did we do? We did awesome. It's time for some investigation. We're going to go to desmos.com and we're going to sketch some graphs and see what happens, because that's how we learn, by observing and seeing how the patterns change. And so I've got my x squared, here's function f, here's function g, and x was subtracting a 2. Notice it moved 2 units to the right. In this problem, notice there is a 5 here. This is like your slope. That's that a value. So go back to Desmos, put a 5 in front of the x squared, and notice how it became steeper. So the 5 makes your parabola narrower. So a is equal to 5. It's that vertical stretch by a factor of 5. H is equal to 2. It's a translation, horizontal translation 2 units right. So what do you think this negative is going to do to our graph? And now notice this function g has a plus here. All right, I've started the process here. So I've got a negative x squared. Notice it's upside down. And Function g had a negative as well for the a value, so that's going to be a reflection in the x-axis, and that was plus 2. So earlier it was minus 2. That moved 2 units to the right. Now it's plus 2, so we're going to move 2 units left. So I've gone ahead and shared my information here with you. If you read here, I have h is equal to a negative 2, and I need you to think about this. Notice we have a plus here. If you think back, and showing you right here, see how this is a minus? That is the most basic vertex function here. That's the formula for it. So how does that affect what I'm about to show you? Well, here's why. H is really a negative 2. This is really saying x minus in that negative 2. What happens when you have two negatives in a row like this? They turn into a positive, which is what you see here. But in reality, it's still a negative 2. The last one here, notice we still have a negative, but this time we have a fraction. So a fraction, like, ignore the negative. We know that's going to be a reflection in the x-axis, but if you just look at the 1/10, is that number closer to 1 or closer to 0? And I hope you guys say it's closer to 0, which means it's going to be a wider parabola. It's going to be more wide than the parent function. Now, I know this is the parent function in this case, but I'm talking about x squared. So when we graph this in a bit, this is going to turn our function, our graph, to be more wide. And then the plus 2 you now know, that's going to be 2 units left. So go ahead and try it and see it for yourself. All right, so we're going to try this without using Desmos, and you can check afterward. All right, so let's take a chance. All right, just like in the classroom, take a chance. No one's watching you, okay? So we've got x minus 4 inside of the group here, and that's being squared. Now remember, this negative should always be there, but it's opposite of what you think. So in this case, did you think horizontal translation 4 units right? If you did, congratulations. So what about b? It's a plus. All right, so 4 units. Hey, that's not right. That should say what? I still make mistakes, but we can correct. It's all good. Left. It's okay to make mistakes. Just correct them. All right, and then that last one there, we've got a negative here. What's this first negative going to do? It's on the outside. It's part of your a value. I hope you know that's a reflection in the x-axis, and this time this is okay. When reading the core concepts, be careful with this idea. It says h is greater than 0, but that's its true value. When you see it in the function, it's going to be opposite of what you think, okay? So just be careful with this idea here. And then here's your vertex form. H is the x-coordinate of the vertex, k is the y-coordinate of the vertex.
You know what it's time for?
In the guided practice, I'm going to help you guys find the vertex and the axis of symmetry of this graph of the function. You can always use Desmos, graph it, but I want to show you that it's really not that bad. So if we go back to our notes earlier, we had y, or f of x, is equal to a, which is like your slope, times x minus h. That's going to be your x-coordinate for your vertex, parentheses, square, plus k, which is your y-coordinate of your vertex. Okay, so I've highlighted these 2 different colors just to make them pop out. So I'm going to do the same thing with number 1 over here. I've got my h right there, and notice there is no k. For number 2, same kind of scenario. And you could do the same for the rest. I'll do those in just a bit. Okay, I think this is really fun. But again, I'm your math teacher. So our x-coordinate here, our h, it says minus already. There's already a minus there, but in reality, this is just a positive 2. there is no k value, so we just put a 0 there. That's it. And then this axis of symmetry is whatever our x-coordinate is in our vertex, our h, and that's it. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. So pause the video, try number 2. Pause it. Pause it. Pause it. 0. So how'd you do? I hope you did well. Let's try it again. Let's go to number 3. Pause the video. Pause it. Pause it. Pause the video. Congrats if you got it right. And if you didn't, it's okay. See if you can figure out your mistakes if you make any. Do you know what I'm going to say next? Pause it. Pause the video. Pause the video. So notice the vertex and the axis of symmetry happen to be the same, and that's it. This is wonderful. And one of the things I want to point out here is, you see the negative at the very front? If we were to sketch this, this is going to be upside down, right? I hope you guys remember that. So it's going to be opening upside down. This one over here, the same thing, but notice this is a 1/2, so it's going to be more wide. Okay, now that's an exaggeration, but you can graph it in Desmos. All right, let's go to number 5. So notice this is a +3, so it's going to be steeper if we were to make a sketch. And where is the vertex at? All right, I'm not going to pause the video. So it's a -2. There is no k value, so we put a 0 there. And our axis of symmetry is at x is equal to -2. Number 6. Notice this is negative, so it'll open upside down like this. Think of a frowny face. Notice it's 1/4, so it's going to be more wide than the 1/2 that we saw earlier. And the vertex is at, notice that's negative, so we put a +6. This stays as it is. And our axis of symmetry is at x is equal to 6. I hope you did well. If not, keep trying, but if you did, congrats, you got it. For question 7, go to Desmos and graph this very first part right here, you guys. Exactly like you see it right here. All right, and then underneath that, go ahead and make a new box and type in g of x with all of this. But watch what happens when you put that +2. All right, so here I've got function f, and that is in red. And then as soon as I go to function g and I put in that +2, notice our function has shifted 2 units to the left. So this is a horizontal translation, 2 units left. So one of the ways that I look at this is that this x +2 and the x +1, notice how those are grouped. And so we're going to just add 2 more to that one that was there. So function g is going to turn out to be, it's got the same slope. That didn't change. But now x, the 1 and the 2 end up becoming 3 squared because it's quadratic. And then the -1, the height didn't change. So our new vertex is at -3, -1. And if we go back, I want to show you something. Went ahead and tested this. And if you notice, it is right on top of what we just did. So it works out beautifully. And that's it. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and contact me through email or use the Remind app. I'm here to help you guys, okay? Don't give up. Perseverance, grit, and it helps your learning, and of course your grade. Quick recap. This is your vertex form. H and K are the coordinates for your vertex in a parabola. Your x-coordinate is your h, your y-coordinate is your k. So vertex form, y or f of x. Notice it's equal to a, parentheses, x minus that h, parentheses, square it, plus the k. And here's the visual representation. Hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. I love this chapter. Hope you guys enjoy it too.